Hey, I'm Matt, and this is my garage. I'm standing next to the car I told you we were going to start in the last episode, and then I left you hanging, and we didn't start it. And I'm really glad we didn't, because it didn't start. As a matter of fact, hell, it didn't even turn over. I hit the key, and I got nothing. I got nothing. So, man, what a disappointment for me, huh? All that work, put the motor back in the car, and nothing. Talk about testing somebody's patience, right? I was really frustrated, and which I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to. You reach a point where you do something, you take your time, you try to do it right, you put everything back together again, you've worked so hard at it, and all you want to do is turn the key and have that engine start. Or have whatever problem you were working on fixed. And then you find out that it's not fixed. And you feel like you did all that work for nothing, right? You're completely deflated. You're frustrated, you just want to throw in the towel and quit. And it crossed my mind. I was like, at that moment I was like, you know what? Screw it, I give up. I was almost there mentally. And I had to take a break, and then I'm like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? You gonna send it to somebody now? No, that's ridiculous. So I'm like, okay, I gotta persevere, right? I just gotta suck it up, roll up my sleeves, and figure it out. So that's what I did. I'm like, hey, worst case, if I have to pull the motor again, I'll pull the motor again. It is what it is, right? Well, that's what I had to do. I had to pull the motor again. So let's take a look at why. Okay, here's the deal. Put the motor back in the car. You saw it. Hooked everything up, went to turn over the engine wouldn't turn. So I was like, I wasn't sure what it was, but I got under there with a ratchet. I tried to turn the motor. I couldn't do it. And so I had to take the engine out because I needed to investigate between the gearbox and the motor. Something wasn't right. Here's what I found. And this is a good lesson. It's a good lesson for me. Maybe you guys already know this, but okay. These bolts on the rear main housing, I replaced the gasket on this thing because it was leaking. All right, from the factory, they use these short little heads with Allen head screws. These things are prone to break when you try to take them out. And mine broke, so I needed 3. Well, on hand, I had these stainless Allen head bolts, and I used those instead. That was a mistake. That was a big mistake. On the back of the flywheel, there's not a lot of clearance. And you can see that mark right there. Guess what? That sucker was hitting the heads of those bolts. So, totally my bad, right? And it was that one right there. I can see where it's been hit. That one's sticking out a lot farther than these. So I think these are okay, but yeah. So you know what? Lesson learned. You got to use bolts with really short profile heads on here. Those Allen head bolts they use are, they were installed by the factory, and factory recommended to put back, and well, now I know why. So good news and bad news. Good news, not a big deal. I can replace those bolts. And I learned something. I learned something I didn't know. It never occurred to me. A lot of things never occur to you unless you have a problem, and then you're like, oh, that's why they did it that way. Okay, I get it. So I'm a little more informed. I'm happy for that. It wasn't that bad taking it out. Now, and you know what? I'm super happy I found out what was wrong. Because the worst thing that you can encounter is it's a problem and you can't figure it out. Right? You don't find anything wrong. That's when you're like, oh my God. But anyway, I started taking stuff off slowly and continued to try to turn the crank until, finally I took off, after taking off the transmission and taking off the pressure plate, took off that flywheel, and that's when the motor was able to turn freely, nice and easily, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, now I know where the problem is. So, replaced the bolts, put it all back together again, put it back in the car again for the second time, and then, try to start it. All right, that's where I am. Gotta be real, right? Everybody makes mistakes. Gotta be real. It's kind of the stuff I go through. All right, later. So I don't have a camera stand, I have a camera person, which is even better. So let me pop the back of this car, and then she's gonna walk up, you'll get a closer look at the engine, and we'll start this thing. All right, I'm gonna pop the engine cover off. Now this thing's super cool, so we'll see what happens. Come on up a little closer there, camera girl. All right, there's the motor. What the hell? Let's try it. Well, that was cool. I finally got that car running. And I actually hadn't done anything to the engine whatsoever. From the time I initially started to the time you heard it, I think the only thing I did was turn the distributor a little bit to try to get it started the first time, because it didn't start the very first time I tried it. I haven't even set the timing on that thing yet. So yeah, I think once I set the timing and do a little more work on the motor and get that fuel accumulator in there, and then maybe fine tune the Bosch ejection system, which, I mean, you can't really fine tune those things. I might have to send the warm up regulator out, like I said, or maybe mess with the fuel distributor a little bit, because I did rebuild that, so the settings in there for the amount of fuel delivered to each cylinder could have messed those up. I don't know. But you know, one step at a time. So definitely gonna set the timing, and then do the fuel accumulator, and then see where we are. So I'll keep you guys up to date on that. I'm really excited to get it out on the road. Can't do it yet, but I think we're really close. So, all right, till next time, see ya.